Hey guys, tonight we snuggle up with the most underrated badass in all of history. A dirty, lumpy chunk of medieval iron that's still laughing at your rust-flecked lawnmower while it holds up cathedrals older than nations. You're tucked in, blanket pulled high, and somewhere out there, an 800-year-old hinge is flexing like modern steel. Cute. You probably won't survive this level of cozy jealousy, but that's okay. We're here to whisper sweet nothings about metal that refuses to die. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're drifting through a moonlit Gothic cathedral, fingers brushing cold, black iron that's been here since knights still thought bathing was optional. The gate creaks, barely, because it's too stubborn to complain. Rain hammers the stained glass. Wind howls through the nave. Yet this iron just sits there, glossy and smug, like it's wearing nature's toughest raincoat. Meanwhile, your brand new patio, set outside, is already auditioning for a tetanus commercial after one drizzle. How does something forged by people who thought the earth was flat out last every advanced alloy we brag about? Spoiler, they cheated, not on purpose, but beautifully. Picture yourself in a soot-choked English village, 1352. The Black Death just coughed its way through town. Half your neighbors are underground, and the blacksmith, let's call him Edric, because every medieval guy was named Edric, is still swinging a hammer like he's personally offended by gravity. His arms look like twisted oak roots. His beard is basically a fire hazard, and his furnace is a glorified clay pot full of charcoal and spite. No stainless steel, no titanium, no fancy lab coats, just fire, sweat, and a lump of ore that looks like a rejected potato. You lean closer, the heat kissing your cheeks, and watch him pull out a glowing, spongy blob. That's a bloom, friends, not a flower. A blooming disaster of iron, slag, and whatever the apprentice dropped in there last week. Modern factories would scream contaminated and send it to the scrap heap. Edric just shrugs, reheats it, and beats it like it owes him money. Every hammer strike echoes through the valley, a metallic heartbeat that says, we don't do perfect, we do permanent. And here's the mainstream history punch. By the 12th century, Europe's bloomery forges were churning out wrought iron so durable that nails from Viking ships, yes, actual 9th century Viking longships, still hold together when archaeologists fish them out of fjords. Historians still argue whether the Vikings deliberately added phosphorus or just got lucky with bog ore. But those nails don't care about our debates. They're too busy not rusting. You sniff the air, charcoal, sweat, a hint of singed beard, and realize medieval iron wasn't shiny. It was dark, almost black, with a skin that gleamed like oil on water. That's patina, baby, nature's own clear coat. While your car's clear coat peels off in sheets after 3 winters, medieval patina thickens with age, sealing cracks, laughing at oxygen. It's the metallurgical equivalent of your grandma's cast iron skillet that's been through 3 wars and still makes better pancakes than your Teflon nonsense. Lean back now, feel the pillow, cradle your head, And imagine touching a 600-year-old cathedral door hinge. It's cool, smooth, heavier than regret. Your fingerprint smudges it for a second, then the patina swallows the mark like nothing happened. That hinge has seen crusaders march out, plague carts roll in, Henry VIII trash monasteries, Napoleon strut by, 2 world wars, and tourists licking it for Instagram. Still there. Your phone case already cracked because you looked at it funny. Quirky tidbit time. Some medieval blacksmiths buried their finished iron in dung heaps for months. Not because they were gross, okay? Partly because they were gross, but because the ammonia slowed oxidation and turned the surface that perfect midnight black. Dung-aged iron beats your Amazon Prime 2-day shipping, doesn't it? You yawn, eyelids getting heavy, and picture Edric wiping soot from his brow, muttering about the cow that kicked his bucket again. He has no idea he just forged a hinge that will outlive the Magna Carta, the Renaissance, the printing press, and every empire that thinks it's eternal. He just wants his door to stay on through winter. Mission accomplished, Edric. Mission accomplished for the next 40 generations. The fire in his forge pops, sending sparks dancing like fireflies with anger issues. You feel the warmth on your face even now, centuries later, because that heat is still trapped in every cathedral gate, every castle portcullis, every humble plowshare buried in a farmer's field. Modern steel gets hot and forgets. Medieval iron gets hot and remembers. You shift under the blanket, toes curling, and realize we worship purity today. Pure steel, pure water, pure intentions on social media. Medieval folks worshipped survival. Purity was for saints. Everyone else wanted a gate that didn't dissolve when it rained. So they left the junk in, slag freckles, carbon streaks, phosphorus ghosts, stuff that would get a modern engineer fired, stuff that saved the metal's life. Somewhere in France, a 900-year-old padlock still clicks shut. In Sweden, a Viking sword pulled from a riverbed still cuts paper. In your garage, a lifetime guaranteed wrench is already orange and flaky. The difference? Medieval iron had character flaws. Modern steel has planned obsolescence. You're sinking deeper into the mattress now, breathing slow, and the cathedral around you fades to black. But that iron gate stays, dark and patient, waiting for tomorrow's rain, like it's just another Tuesday. And it is. It always has been. The church bell tolls once, low and lazy, echoing through stone that iron has kept together since before your country existed. You smile sleepily, because somewhere out there, a blacksmith's bad day is still propping up the world. And that, my friend, is the coziest thought of all. You picture yourself wandering a misty graveyard at twilight, boots crunching on frost-kissed grass, and there it is, an iron fence from 1420, spikes still sharp enough to make you step back. The gate swings open with a sigh, not a screech, because someone oiled it last week. Someone always oils it. Tradition is thicker than blood around here. Your breath fogs in the chill, and you trail a finger along the railing. No flakes, no pits, just that deep, glossy black that drinks the moonlight. Your phone flashlight catches tiny glassy flecks frozen in the metal. Slag inclusions, like stars trapped in obsidian. Modern factories spend millions filtering those out. Medieval Edric just shrugged and said, "Hey, looks like protection." And it was. Those speckles sealed microscopic cracks before oxygen could sneak in and throw a rust party. Think of them as medieval caulk, but made of volcanic glass and spite. Every time the iron tried to corrode, it hit a slag wall and gave up. Kind of like your diet every January. You wander further, past leaning tombstones and sleeping gargoyles, until you reach the cathedral door. The hinges are as thick as your wrist, forged in one piece, no welds, because welding hadn't been reinvented yet. They've carried that oak door through floods, sieges, and every tourist who thinks swinging on them is cute. Still perfect, your car door sounded like a dying goose. After 5 years, a night watchman nods at you, lantern swinging, and you realize people have been nodding at strangers by this door for 8 centuries. Same iron, same nod. Time just flows around it like water around a boulder. You feel small, but in the good way, like the universe is winking at you. Back in the village forge, Edric's apprentice, little Tom, with the burnt eyebrows, is folding the bloom for the 17th time. Each fold traps more carbon, more slag, more accidental genius. It's not efficient, it's not fast, it's not even particularly straight. But when Tom grows up and that sword he's beating ends up in a museum, curators will gasp at the layered patterns. Like Damascus steel's scrappy cousin, they'll call it folded wrought iron. Tom called it Thursday. You yawn again, deeper this time, and the forge fire dims to embers in your mind. The rhythmic hammer strikes slow, matching your heartbeat, until both fade into the same steady pulse. Thump, thump, thump. 800 years compressed into one lullaby. Somewhere in York, a set of iron chains that once held prisoners in the castle dungeon now hang in a museum. They're pitted from sweat and fear, but structurally perfect. The prisoners are long gone. The chains are still ready for work. Iron outlived despair. That's metal AF. You roll over, blanket tucked under your chin, and realize medieval iron didn't win by being strong. It won by being forgiving. A little bend here, a little scar there, a patch of patina thicker where the rain hit hardest. It adapted. Your stainless steel fridge handle snaps off if you sneeze too hard. Medieval iron just develops another layer of I've seen some things glossier than before, a quirky whisper before you drift. In parts of Germany, blacksmiths added old horseshoes to the bloomery charge because they believed the horse's travels infused the iron with luck. Historians still argue whether it was superstition or if the worn iron actually contributed trace elements that helped corrosion resistance. Either way, next time your car rusts, blame the lack of road trip horseshoe mojo. You smile into the pillow, the cathedral gate creaking shut behind you. In dreamland, locked with a key that's probably older than chocolate, the night watchman's lantern fades to a single glowing coal, and you're floating now, weightless, carried on the quiet certainty that somewhere, right now, a piece of medieval iron is holding up the world while we sleep. And it's not even trying. It's just being its stubborn, impure, glorious self. Good night, Edric. Good night, imperfect masterpiece. Keep holding that door. We'll need it when we wake. You sink deeper, the mattress swallowing you whole, and the last thing you feel is the cool kiss of ancient iron on your fingertips. Steady, eternal, and whispering, I've got you. The village sleeps under a blanket of stars, roofs thatched and silent, but the forge still glows faintly. A heartbeat in the dark. Edric banks the fire, covers the coals with ash so they'll breathe tomorrow, and trudges home to his straw pallet. He has no idea His hinge will outlast his bloodline by 7 centuries. He just wants breakfast. You're there with him, shadow on the wall, watching the glow die to ruby embers that look like dragon eyes closing. The air smells of wood smoke and possibility, and you realize every cathedral you've ever Instagrammed owes its spine to nights like this. Nights when tired men with impossible forearms accidentally invented immortality because they were too poor to waste anything. Your breathing slows, matching the bellows sigh. Huh, huh, huh. Until even that fades, the forge goes dark, but the iron remembers the fire. It always will. And somewhere, in a museum case you'll never visit, a single nail from a 13th century barn leans against velvet, daring you to look close. You do, and you see galaxies of slag swirling inside, a universe born from mud and muscle. You blink, and it's still there. You blink again, and you're back in bed, safe, warm, guarded by the ghosts of stubborn metal that refuse to leave their posts. Sweet, heavy sleep pulls you under now, the way patina pulls oxygen away from rust. You let it, because tonight, you're not just resting, you're being held, gently, firmly, by the strongest arms history never bothered to name. You stir slightly in the dimming forge glow, the embers from Edric's fire still warming your cheeks like a half-forgotten dream. But now the night pulls you deeper into the heart of it all, the bloomery itself, that humble clay beast squatting in the village mud, like it's auditioning for the role of forgotten hero in a history play no one watches. You're crouched low now, knees sinking into the damp earth, the air thick with the tang of wet clay, and charcoal dust that clings to your skin like a needy ex. The bloomery isn't much to look at. A squat chimney of baked mud and straw, maybe waist high, topped with a thatched hood to trap the smoke that's already making your eyes water. But this little oven, fueled by pure medieval spite, is where immortality gets its start. You feel the heat building, a slow roar from within, as if the ground itself is grumbling about having to cough up the metal on demand. Bellows wheeze to life nearby, 2 goatskin bags squeezed by Edric's apprentice, Tom, whose face is smeared with more black than a goth's eyeliner collection. Each pump sends a whoosh of air into the furnace's belly, fanning the charcoal into a greedy orange maw. You press closer, the warmth licking at your face, carrying whispers of sulfur and singed wood that make your nose twitch. This isn't some high-tech blast furnace with graphs and gauges. It's a campfire on steroids, running hot enough to soften iron ore into submission, but too stubborn to melt it outright. And that's the genius, the accidental poetry. By not quite liquefying the stuff, they trap all the chaos inside. The slag, the carbon flecks, the phosphorus surprises that turns a worthless bog rock into a gate that laughs at centuries. You imagine the ore tumbling in, chunks of rust-red hematite or bog iron scraped from swamps that smell like forgotten socks. Mainstream history fact. By the 10th century, bloomeries dotted Europe, from the misty fens of England to the volcanic slopes of Sicily, producing up to 20 kilograms of bloom per day in a good run, enough to arm a knight or shoe a dozen horses, fueling the feudal grind that built the Middle Ages brick by rusty brick. Historians still argue whether the technology spread from Roman holdovers or popped up independently in every mud puddle that had charcoal and a desperate smith. But either way, It kept the swords swinging and the plows turning when empires were busy crumbling. The fire builds. You feel it in your bones now, a pulsating throb that syncs with Tom's rhythmic squeezes on the bellows. Huff, 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 like the bloomery's trying to breathe, but keeps choking on its own ambition. Smoke curls out in lazy gray tendrils, stinging your throat, and you cough softly, the sound lost in the crackle. Edric tosses in more charcoal, chunks of wood slow roasted in oxygen-starved pits, until they're light as regrets and hot as grudges. Charcoal's the unsung MVP here, burning cleaner than wood, but infusing the iron with just enough carbon to toughen the surface without turning it brittle. You watch the glow shift from yellow to fierce orange, the heat warping the air like a bad mirage, and suddenly there's that telltale sizzle, the ores breaking down, silica and impurities bubbling into glassy slag, while the iron particles sponge together in a lumpy defiance of physics. Quirky tidbit. Some Scottish smiths swore by adding seaweed to their bloomeries, not for the iodine kick, but because the salt helped flux the slag into a more pliable mess. Fringe alchemy that turned Highland iron into the stuff of clan feuds lasting generations. You chuckle inwardly, wiping sweat from your brow. Imagine your modern grill master tossing kelp into the coals for authenticity. Yeah, that'd go over well at the neighborhood barbecue. The spite part? Oh, it's palpable. This process takes hours. 8, 10, sometimes a full day of coaxing flames that flicker and sulk if the wind shifts wrong. Tom's arms ache already, blisters blooming on his palms like unwanted flowers, and Edric's pacing like a caged bear, muttering curses that would make a sailor blush if sailors had been invented yet. You feel the frustration radiating off them, the way the bloomery fights back with uneven heat spots that leave half the charge too cold, the other half a molten tantrum, but they persist because giving up means no plow for spring planting, no hinge for the mill door, no sword to fend off the next raid. Spite forges the metal and the man. Every bellows pump is a middle finger to the gods of inefficiency. You lean in even closer, the clay walls radiating warmth that seeps through your clothes, and peer into the firebox, a makeshift grate of iron bars holding the inferno at bay. The ore's transforming now. You can almost hear it, a low groan as iron blooms from the chaos, spongy and porous, like a drunkard's resolve the morning after. Not liquid, thank the stars. No puddling here, no Bessemer converters with their hissing jets of air, just solid chunks welding together in the heat, trapping air pockets and impurities like secrets in a diary. Modern eyes would call it junk. Edric calls it Tuesday's yield. He hooks the grate with a long iron rod, the tool glowing cherry red, and hauls out the first bloom, a fist-sized lump, matte black on the outside, riddled with cracks that ooze slag like slow lava. It's ugly, asymmetrical, heavier than it looks, about 5 kilos of potential apocalypse. Your fingers itch to touch it, but you know better, even cooling. It's a promise of burns. Instead, you trail alongside Edric as he carries it to the anvil. The night air outside a shocking slap of chill after the furnace's embrace. The village is hushed, dogs snoring in the straw, a distant owl hooting like it's judging your life choices. He sets the bloom on the anvil, a weathered slab of meteoric iron pitted from 1,000 strikes, and reheats it in a smaller forge. Sparks flying up like startled fireflies. You feel the rhythm building again. The hammer's song, clang, clang, clang. Each blow driving out slag in fiery spits, folding the metal like dough that's allergic to yeast. It's not pretty. The bloom flattens unevenly, edges curling like bad hair on a humid day. But every strike redistributes the carbon, seals those air pockets, turns weakness into whispered strength. And here's a light joke to ease the heat. Why did the medieval blacksmith never play hide and seek? Because good luck hiding. When your hammer echoes like a drunk uncle at karaoke, you smirk, the sound swallowed by the next swing, and settle into the cadence, your own pulse sinking as if you're the one wielding the maul. Edric pauses to quench the bloom in a trough of urine-tinged water. Yes, really, for the nitrogen boost that hardens the surface, and steam billows up, ghosting your face with a briny fog. The metal hisses in protest, cooling to a dull thud under the hammer once more. This is the spite in action. The bloom fights every step, cracking if hit too hard, sticking if too cold. But Edric doesn't quit. He folds it again, reheats, hammers, folds, like origami with anger issues, until the impurities are beaten into submission, not removed. You wipe your forehead, the sweat cooling sticky on your skin, and glance at Tom, who's collapsed against the bellows frame, chest heaving like he's run a marathon in clogs. The kid's got that wide-eyed look, half awe, half, why did I sign up for this? You remember from the cathedral gate how this very process birthed its hinges, layer upon layer of that stubborn bloom, quirks baked in like raisins in a lumpy cake. No two pieces the same. One might have a carbon vein running stubborn through the middle, making it flex instead of snap. Another traps extra slag near the edge, turning it into a natural gasket against wet wood. The night deepens, stars pricking the velvet sky like careless stitches, and the forge's glow paints everything in flickering bronze. You feel the earth's pulse underfoot, the clay floor vibrating with each hammer fall, as if the ground approves of this alchemical brawl. Bloomeries weren't just ovens, they were village hearts, beating out tools that tied communities together. Nails for homes, chains for trade, bars for the rare moments of peace. Without them, the Middle Ages would have been a lot more medieval, in the bad way. All mud and misery. No swords to romanticize in bad movies. Historians still argue whether bloomeries peaked in efficiency around the 14th century, or if the Black Death just weeded out the lazy smiths, leaving only the spite-fueled pros. Either way, you can almost taste the progress in the air, bitter charcoal and sweet victory, as Edric steps back, wiping his hands on a rag that's more oil than cloth. The bloom's transformed, no longer a sponge of regret, but a flat bar, rough-hewn and ready for the next dance with fire. He eyes it like a proud parent, flaws and all, because those flaws are the family jewels. You shift your weight, the mud sucking at your boots, and follow as he stacks the bar with others, cooling on the rack, a lineup of moody adolescents, each with its own temper. One's got a glassy sheen from excess slag, another a subtle ripple from uneven carbon. Tomorrow, he'll draw them out into rods, twist them into hooks, beat them into blades. But tonight, in the quiet, after the storm of strikes, You feel the immortality settling in, quiet as a sigh. This bar will become a plowshare that furrows fields for kings unborn, or a prison bar that holds whispers of rebellion, all from a muddy oven and a man's grudge against softness. Light joke too. Bloomeries were so temperamental, they basically invented the phrase, if it ain't broke, hit it harder. You grin, the hammer's echo fading into cricket chirps, and let the warmth linger on your skin as the fire banks low. Tom's snoring now, head lolled against the bellows, and Edric mutters a prayer to whichever saint handles hot metal, probably Saint Dunstan, the patron of all things hammered and holy. You nod along, invisible witness, because you've seen where this leads, to gates that guard cathedrals through plagues and parliaments outlasting the very faith that built them. The spite ebbs, replaced by a bone-deep ache in your arms from phantom swinging, and you straighten, the night air crisp with dew-kissed grass. The bloomery squats silent now, clay cracked from the heat, waiting for dawn's cruel revival. You trail a hand along its side, rough and warm, like petting a sleeping dragon that's earned its nap. Inside, the remnants of today's battle smolder, slag vitrified into blobs like failed glass art, charcoal ash sifting like black snow. It's messy, inefficient, gloriously human. Modern factories would optimize it out of existence. Edric just kicks a clod of dirt over the embers and calls it good. You wander back toward the village path, firelight painting long shadows that dance like tipsy elves, and pause at the edge of the glow. Remember that dung-aged iron from the graveyard fence? This is its birthplace, baptized in bellows breath and hammer hymns. The process wasn't science. It was survival with a side of sorcery. No thermometers to clock 100 degrees Celsius, just the bloom's color, from blood red to white hot, gauged by Edric's calloused squint. Too cool, and the iron stays brittle as a promise. Too hot, and it welds to the tools. Balanced by feel, spite as glue, quirky fringe whisper. In rural Wales, some smiths chanted old Celtic rhymes while charging the bloomery, believing the words sealed the metal against fairies who supposedly soured iron with their pranks. Scholars debate if it was folklore or if the vibrations from chanting actually helped settle the slag. Voodoo metallurgy at its finest. You huff a sleepy laugh, the sound soft in the hush, and keep walking, the path crunching underfoot like brittle leaves. The stars wheel overhead, indifferent witnesses, and you feel the weight of it all. The bloomery's spite-forged legacy, threading through time like a vein of ore. Every cathedral bolt you touched earlier, born here in nights like this, when men with soot-lunged lungs bet their backs against entropy. Your steps slow, the village lights winking like distant fireflies, and the forge's heat fades to a memory on your skin, but it lingers in the air, a smoky promise. Immortality isn't born clean, it's hammered out in mud, with bellows wheezing and hammers cursing. One spiteful strike at a time, you pause at a low stone wall, moss soft under your palm, and lean there, letting the night's chill balance the forge's ghost warmth. Tom's dream mumbles carry on the breeze. More air, master. And you smile, because tomorrow you'll wake blistered and bold, ready for round two. Edric's already snoring in his thatch-roofed hut, hammer within reach, like a security blanket. The bloomery cools, contracting with faint pops, as if sighing in relief. You felt its heartbeat. Now you carry its rhythm in your chest, steady and unyielding. Light joke 3. If Bloomeries had Yelp reviews, it'd be 4 stars. Great heat, but the parking's a mud pit, and the service takes all day. You chuckle quietly, the sound folding into the rustle of wind through oaks, and push off the wall. Drawn onward by the pull of deeper shadows, the path twists toward the river, where willows dip like weary dancers, and you hear the waters murmur, eternal gossip about stones, worn smooth over eons, irons like that river, you think. Not flashy, but persistent, carving cathedrals. From chaos, one patient, flow at a time, deeper into the woods now. The forges glow a faint blush on the horizon, and you stumble on a forgotten bloomery ruin. Crumbled clay lips, like an old man's grin, overgrown with nettles that sting your shins. You kneel, brushing away vines, and uncover a shard of ancient slag, glassy and iridescent in the moonlight. Hold it to your ear. It whispers of bellows. Long silent, hammers turn to dust. This is spite's souvenir, proof that even ruins endure when forged right. Your modern junk drawer overflows with plastic ghosts. Here, a shard from 1100 AD still cuts your thumb if you're careless. The sting fades quick, a pinprick reminder, and you pocket the shard, rising with the river's song in your ears. Historians still argue whether bloomeries declined with the 15th century water-powered hammers, or if it was just cheaper to import Swedish iron. Debates that rust in libraries. While these ruins stand smug, you follow the water's edge, boots squelching in loam, the air rich with wet earth and wild mint that crushes underfoot, releasing a sharp, clean bite. Further on, the trees part to reveal a clearing where another forge once stood, charcoal pits ringed in scorched stones. Like fairy circles for pyromaniacs, you circle them slow, feeling the echo of old fires in the soil, warm even now, under moonlight. Imagine the nights, apprentices tripping over roots, with armloads of ore, Edric types barking orders in the dark, the bloomeries roar drowning out wolves' howls. Spite wasn't just fuel, it was the glue holding fragile lives to the wheel of seasons. A bad bloom meant hunger, a good one a feast. No middle ground, no refunds. You settle on a log, the wood damp and yielding, and let the shard roll in your palm, heavy, textured, alive with trapped history. The river chuckles past, carrying leaves like tiny boats on forgotten quests, and you feel the pull of sleep tugging at your edges. But the night's stories aren't done. Bloomeries birthed more than metal. They forged the medieval soul. Resilient, scarred, unapologetic, your patio chair weeps rust in the rain. This slag shard, it'll outlast your grandkids' regrets. The wind picks up, sighing through branches like a bellows ghost, and you rise, pocketing the shard deeper, drawn back toward the village's faint lights. Tom's snores have quieted, the forge a black hulk against the stars. But you know dawn will wake it, bellows huffing, hammers singing, spite renewed. You've felt the heat. Now carry it like a talisman, warm against your chest as you trudge homeward, the path soft under moon-silvered feet. Sleep calls louder now, a gentle tide lapping at your resolve. But pause one last time at the bloomery's door. Clay cracked, embers winking like conspirators. Touch the wall, it remembers your fingers, holds the heat like a promise. Immortality starts here, in mud and malice, hammered into shape by hands too tired to care about perfection. Good night, spiteful oven. Good night, accidental gods of endurance. You've got the world in your belly. Let it burn slow. You slip away, the river's murmur fading to a hush. The shards wait a steady anchor in your pocket. The night folds around you, soft as hammered silk, and you drift toward dreams where forges glow eternal. Bellows breathe your name. The village stirs faintly as you pass. A dog lifts its head, ears pricked, then flops back with a sigh. Huts huddle like sleeping children, thatch roofs, exhaling chimney ghosts of last night's stew. You weave between them, the air cooling to a velvet wrap, carrying hints of baking bread from the baker's banked oven, rye and yeast, a tease for tomorrow. But your mind's still in the forge, replaying the bloom's birth, ore crumbling, fire claiming, hammer claiming back. Spite's symphony, scored for anvil and apprentice. A cat streaks across your path, eyes like forge sparks, and you startle, laughing soft, feline reminder that night's full of small ambushes. It vanishes into shadows, tail a question mark, and you press on, the shard clicking against a pebble in your pocket. Think of all the blooms that never made it, cracked in the heat, discarded in the mud, their spite spent too soon. But the survivors, they threaded history's hem, plows that fed Renaissance painters, gates that barred Reformation rioters, chains that bound explorers' dreams to masts. You reach your own thatched door, imagined but solid in the dream, and push inside. The room dim with rushlight flicker, straw mattress calls, piled high with wool that smells of lanolin and lavender from the fields. Sink into it, the give like fresh forged metal, yielding just enough. The shard tumbles out, landing on the blanket, catching the light in a glassy wink. Hold it close, feel the weight of spite in your palm, the heat's echo in its veins. Bloomeries didn't promise eternity, they delivered it, one lumpy miracle at a time. Sleep steals in now, thief quiet, pulling the blanket higher. The forge's rhythm lingers, clang, wheeze, hiss, morphing to your breath, slow and sure. Dreams bloom in the dark, mud ovens rising like phoenixes, hammers swinging silver arcs, immortality spilling from clay lips like wine from a cracked chalice. You felt it, lived it, the spite that saves. Rest easy, the bellows will huff on without you, forging tomorrows from today's grudges. You slip from the cooling bloomery's shadow like a thief in the night, the shard of slag still warm in your pocket, pulsing faintly as if it remembers the fire's kiss. And now, the path twists toward a quieter corner of the forge yard, where the real heroes lie discarded. Piles of what looks like volcanic vomit, glassy black rivers, frozen mid-flow, chunks of fairy tale dragon poop that no one bothered to sweep away. You're knee-deep in it now, literally. The ground crunchy underfoot with centuries of slag heaps that smell like burnt earth and forgotten barbecues. This is the unsung savior, the filthy byproduct that medieval blacksmiths treated like Tuesday's trash, but that secretly armored their iron against the apocalypse of rust. You scoop a handful, the piece is sharp and iridescent, catching starlight in oily rainbows, and let them trickle through your fingers like the sands of time's grumpier cousin. Edric kicks at a heap as he passes, muttering about the mess. But you see what he doesn't. These glassy freckles are the reason his hinges mock entropy. Slag isn't just waste, it's the bubble wrap of the Middle Ages, cushioning iron's delicate ego from oxygen's endless advances. You crouch low, the chill seeping through your knees, and press a chunk to your cheek. Cool now, but with that latent heat that whispers of lava, flows, and alchemical tantrums. Back in the bloomery, when the ore surrendered, silica and lime and whatever else hitched a ride melted into this gooey mess, floating to the top like cream on bad milk, trapping impurities before they could sabotage the bloom. Modern factories, they purify until the metal's naked and shivering. Edric just tapped it off with a rod and let it harden into these lumpy souvenirs. You wander the heap, boots crunching like you're walking on potato chips from hell, and spot a fresh tap, still glowing faintly orange at the edges, a river of molten glass that cooled into a twisted sculpture worthy of a mad artist's fever dream. Mainstream history, fact, slag inclusions in wrought iron from the 12th century Viking era have been analyzed to show up to 20% non-metallic content, creating a natural composite stronger in corrosion resistance than pure iron ever could be. Stuff that's still holding up ship rivets in museum displays while your marine-grade boat trailer dissolves in the driveway. Historians still argue whether blacksmiths intentionally left more slag in wet climates, or if it was just laziness paying off big time. But the cathedrals don't care. They're too busy not falling down. The air here is thicker, laced with that metallic tang that coats your tongue like you've licked a battery, and you breathe deep, feeling the grit settle in your lungs. Solidarity with Edric's perpetual cough. Slag wasn't uniform. Every batch birthed its own personality, some glassy and brittle, shattering underfoot like frozen tears, others fibrous, stringy from the flux, wrapping around the iron like protective vines. You pick up a stringer, long and twisted like petrified licorice, and twirl it in the moonlight. This is the stuff that filled microscopic cracks in the bloom, sealing them before water could sneak in and throw a rust rave. Oxygen knocks. Slag says, no solicitors. And the iron just chills for centuries. Quirky tidbit. In parts of medieval Japan, wait, no, stick to Europe. But fringe European smiths in the Alps collected witch's butter, fungus, from trees to add to the charge, believing it made slag flow better. Modern tests show the organic acids did act as extra flux, turning waste into even stickier armor. You snort softly, the sound echoing off the heaps. Imagine explaining that to OSHA. Safety violation. Nah, just witch butter o'clock. You settle on a slag boulder, smooth from years of rain polishing, and lean back, the night sky sprawling overhead like spilled ink. From here, the forge looks small, almost cute. But these heaps tower like ancient burial mounds for failed experiments. Yet they're the victors. Every cathedral gate you brushed earlier, riddled with these freckles, invisible to the naked eye, but screaming in electron microscopes. We blocked the rust suckers. Slag didn't just sit there. It reacted. Over time, it leached alkaloids or something. Okay. Basically, it formed a phosphate silicate barrier that turned the surface hydrophobic, water beating off like lies off a politician. Light joke 1. Slag's so good at its job, modern engineers call it contamination and spend billions removing it, then wonder why their bridges need painting every 5 years. It's like firing the bodyguard because he eats too many donuts, then getting mugged by oxygen. You grin, shifting on your rocky throne, the edges poking just enough to keep you awake in this dreamy haze. The heaps stretch into shadow, a lunar landscape of black glass and hidden treasures, and you hop down, delving deeper where the older slag lies, centuries compacted, fused into solid rock that archaeologists chip away at for clues. You kneel, brushing dirt from a vein of firelight. That's the fancy name for iron silicate slag, crystalline and gorgeous, like obsidian's tougher sibling. Hold it to the light. It sparkles with magnetite inclusions, tiny magnets trapped forever. This is what saved the Delhi pillar we'll meet later. But here in humble Europe, it's the everyday miracle propping up your bedtime stories. You feel the weight of it all, literally, as a chunk tumbles into your lap, heavy, unyielding, the unsung hero no ballad bothered to sing. Edrich cursed it. Apprentices shoveled it into carts for road fill. Villagers used it to weigh down thatch in storms. But slag was working undercover, infiltrating every bar of iron with its patchwork armor. Rust starts at the surface, creeping in like gossip. Slag blocks the doors, fills the cracks, turns potential tragedy into meh. Try harder. Wander further, the ground uneven like a bad moonwalk, and you stumble on a slag-lined pit. Old waste, dumped and forgotten, now a natural forge of endurance tales. Peer in, the sides gleam with vitrified layers, glassified by heat upon heat, a geological lasagna of medieval Mondays. Your breath fogs in the chill, mixing with phantom smoke, and you imagine the tap moments. Edric cracking the bloomery's clay tap hole with a rod, molten slag pouring out in a fiery waterfall, hissing on the ground like an angry cat, steam exploding upward, apprentices dancing back from the splash that could melt a boot. Dangerous, messy, magnificent, and here's the poetry. Slag made medieval iron heterogeneous, patchy, unpredictable, alive. Modern steel is homogeneous, rusts evenly like a well-mannered suicide. Slaggy iron rusts in fits and starts, hitting barriers and stalling, giving the patina time to thicken. It's the difference between a quilt and a sheet in a storm. You hug your knees, the pit's edge cool under your palms, and feel that gratitude for the junk that saved the beauty. Light joke too. If slag had a dating profile, it'd be loves long walks on iron surfaces, hates oxygen, looking for microscopic cracks to fill. Swipe right for eternity. You chuckle, the echo bouncing off glassy walls, and rise, dusting slag dust from your clothes. Black flecks that shimmer like glitter from hell. The village sleeps beyond the heaps, but here time feels suspended, slag eternal sentinels guarding the forge's secrets. You trail a hand along a mound, feeling the textures, bubbly like pumice in places, smooth as river stone in others, sharp enough to draw blood if careless. A drop wells on your finger, dark in the moonlight. Iron's blood, slag's tear. It doesn't rust. The barrier's too strong. Your phone would freak out in a splash. This drop laughs at humidity, deeper into the labyrinth of waste, where moonlight barely penetrates, and you find artisanal slag, tap pieces shaped like hearts or accidental animals, cooled mid-drip into whimsical forms. Pick one up, a tiny dragon, wings spread in glassy glory. Fringe collectors in the 19th century paid good money for these forge fairies, believing they brought luck. Historians still argue whether it was Victorian romanticism or if smiths deliberately shaped taps for side hustles. Either way, you've got a pocket dragon now, warm against your thigh. The air grows heavier, laden with that baked clay scent, and you breathe it in, letting it fill you like the impurities filled the iron. Slag wasn't evil. It was the forge's immune system, attacking invaders before they could weaken the host. Without it, bloomery iron would have pitted and failed in a decade. With it, gates endure plagues, wars, revolutions. You spin slowly, arms out, surrounded by mountains of savior trash, and whisper thanks to the goo that refused to be wasted. Light joke 3. Modern recycling brags about turning bottles into parks. Medieval slag turned garbage into immortality and didn't even post about it on Instagram. Humble king, you laugh soft, the sound absorbed by the heaps, and start climbing one, the tallest, a black hill under stars. From the top, the village spreads below, thatch roofs, like sleeping hedgehogs, the bloomery a dark smudge, river glinting like a slag vein. You sit, legs dangling over glassy edges, and survey your kingdom of cast-offs. This view, Adric never bothered. He was too busy cursing the mess. But you see the truth. Slag is the moat around Iron's castle, the thorns on the rose, the plot armor in history's longest RPG. Wind whispers through cracks, carrying faint hammer echoes from dreams, and you lean back on your elbows, slag crunching comfortably. Remember the cathedral hinge? Zoom in your mind. Electron images show slag stringers weaving like rivers, blocking corrosion paths. Rust tries a detour, hits another barrier, gives up for a century. Slag's playing 4D chess, while oxygen's stuck on checkers. You roll a piece between fingers, the edges smoothing from your warmth, and ponder the irony. We purify today for efficiency, then coat with paint that peels. Medieval folks left the junk in, and nature did the painting for free. Patina over slag, like icing on a very gritty cake. Delicious durability. Sleep tugs harder now. The heap's embrace surprisingly cozy, like a beanbag from Mordor. You slide down, a glassy avalanche in slow motion, landing soft in a drift of finer tap slag. Powdery, almost sandy. Burrow in, the grains shifting warm, and let your eyes flutter. Slag cradles you, unsung savior turned bedtime guardian. Its barriers, now shielding your dreams from worry. The stars blur, dragon in pocket, purring faintly, and you sink, the heaps rising around like protective walls. Tomorrow, Edric will curse them again, shovel them aside for new battles. But tonight, they're your fortress, filthy and flawless. Good night, dragon poop armor. Good night, microscopic heroes. You've saved more than iron. You've saved the wonder. You drift, slag's rainbow sheen fading to black, the wind's whisper turning to breath, slow, steady, eternal. Dreams bloom glassy and strong, rivers of molten protection flowing through the dark. Further into the heaps, you phantom walk, weightless now, feet barely disturbing the crust. A hidden cavern opens, old slag fused into a dome, moonlight filtering through cracks like stained glass from Hell's cathedral. Inside, the air's still, preserved heat hugging you like a secret. Walls shimmer with flow lines, frozen cascades where slag poured and paused mid-defiance. You touch a wall. It's smooth, almost waxy, the phaelite crystals catching light in hypnotic patterns. This is Slag's gallery, art no one commissioned, but time curated. Swirls of magnetite, bubbles trapped like ancient burps, colors shifting from oil slick purple to forge fire green. Your breath catches beauty in the beast's belly. Sit cross-legged on the floor, slag gravel your carpet, and pull out the dragon again. Hold it high. It casts tiny shadows, a puppet show of endurance. Slag didn't ask for glory. It took it quietly, infiltrating iron like a spy network. Every inclusion, a safe house for durability. Echoes of Edric's voice bounce faintly. More flux, boy. And you smile, the cavern amplifying it to ghostly chorus. Flux was Slag's enabler, lime from shells or bones, making them melt, runny enough to separate, but sticky enough to cling. Bones in the forge, quirky and grim, but effective. Historians still argue if it was deliberate osteometallurgy or just using what was handy after dinner. You lie back, cavern ceiling a starry inverse, and feel the pulse. Slag's heartbeat, slow as geology, it protected by sacrifice, dissolving itself to shield the iron, leaching away over centuries, but leaving barriers behind. Noble junk, the kamikaze of corrosion. Sleep deepens, the dome cradling you in glassy arms. Dragon curled on your chest, dreams swirl in vitreous flows. Rivers of black glass carrying you to cathedral doors, where slag winks from within hinges. Tiny eyes saying, "We got this." The world fades, slags embrace absolute, unsung no more, in your whisper thoughts. Savior of empires, filler of cracks, eternal freckle, rest in your armor, dawn can wait. You tumble gently from the slag cavern's glassy embrace. The dragon shard still clutched like a talisman against your chest, its edges softened by your warmth. And now the night air shifts, carrying a richer, earthier scent that wraps around you like a smoker's hug, gone organic. You're drifting toward the charcoal pits, those low oxygen graves where wood goes in alive and comes out reborn as black gold, light as whispers, and hot as a dragon's bad mood. The path crunches underfoot with stray cinders, leading you to the edge of a mounded pit, steam faintly rising from yesterday's burn, like the forest is exhaling secrets. This is charcoal's domain, the black magic that didn't just fuel the forge. It gifted medieval iron its protective patina soul, a dark tattoo that ages like fine wine, while your galvanized garbage ages like milk in the sun. You kneel at the pit's rim, earth damp and loamy under your palms, and peer into the mound. Layers of logs, stacked like a funeral pyre for trees, covered in turf and dirt to starve the flames of air. Slow suffocation, that's the trick. Wood chars instead of burns, trapping carbon in a lightweight lattice that burns twice as hot as its leafy predecessor, without the messy smoke of green timber. Edric's voice echoes in your mind, gruff and approving. Good char. Boy, none of that wet willow nonsense. You feel the residual warmth seeping up, kissing your face with hints of resin and roasted oak, the air thick enough to chew. The pit's been banking all day. You sense it, the muffled crackle, deep inside, like popcorn in a buried microwave. Mainstream history, fact. By the 13th century, charcoal production in Europe's forests supplied over 80% of the energy for ironworking, sustaining bloomeries that output enough wrought iron to build the Gothic cathedrals, sprouting like stone flowers across the continent. Think Notre Dame's original framework, still flexing after fires that would have melted lesser metals. Historians still argue Whether deforestation from charcoal pits sparked early conservation laws, or if it was just nobles hoarding hunting grounds. But the forests regrew, and the iron endured. You lean closer, the turf warm under your touch, and imagine the lighting. Idric striking flint at dawn, a puff of flame, licking the kindling before the mound seals shut. Then the wait, days of tending vents, peeking through spy holes to gauge the smoke's color. Blue haze means good carbonization, white means too much air. Wasted wood, its patience distilled into soot, the original renewable fuel for folks who accidentally went green while trying not to freeze. Charcoal's light, porous, pure, carbon magic burns clean in the bloomery, infusing the iron with just enough to carburize the surface, turning it hard and dark without making the core brittle. Quirky tidbit: in medieval Cornwall, charcoal makers, colliers, black as demons and twice as reclusive, lived in forest huts for months, swearing the moon's phases affected the burn. Full moon for denser char, they claimed, and modern tests kinda back it up with humidity swings influencing the pyrolysis. Fringe lunar metallurgy. You can't make this stuff up. You huff a laugh, breath mingling with the steam, and settle cross-legged, the pit's heat a cozy radiator against the night's chill. The magic deepens as you picture the reveal. Edric and Tom raking back the turf, unearthing black treasure that crumbles light as feathers, bags filled, hauled to the forge, on sleds that leave sooty trails like comet tails. In the bloomery, this char packs tight around the ore, burning steady and fierce, coating everything in velvet black. That's the soul gift. Soot embedding in the iron's skin, sealing it under a natural patina that doesn't flake like cheap paint. Your car gets a wax job that lasts a month. Medieval iron got a soot tattoo that thickens with every rain, bonding chemically to form magnetite, a rust-proof shield that laughs at corrosion. Light joke 1. Charcoal's so renewable, it basically invented reduce, reuse, reburn, while your eco-bulbs burn out before the packaging degrades. You smirk, digging fingers into the cooling edge where char peeks through, crumbly, feather-light, smelling like a campfire's ghost. It powders your skin black, marking you as an honorary collier, and you rub it in, feeling the grit that protected empires.